They chained Vale beneath the royal chapel because the crown was afraid to kneel. That was the truth no priestess said aloud. Above her, coronation bells waited for dawn. Below the altar, Mara knelt on black stone with silver chains biting into her wrists, throat, waist, and ankles. The court called her cursed. The chapel records called her dangerous. Caldress called her necessary. But the oldest law beneath the altar called her blood before the crown. Mara did not know that yet. She only knew the chains had cut her skin, and every drop of blood that touched the stone made the chapel floor glow. The stair door opened. Ronan Veyr descended before the chapel guards finished announcing him. He had not yet been crowned, but power already moved around him like a storm held on a leash. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black coronation armor, silver wolf cloak at his throat, his pale gray eyes took in the chamber with a king's cold discipline. Then he saw her wrists, the blood under the chains, the crescent mark burning faint silver beneath her torn gray shift. For 1 second his control failed. His hand closed around the stair rail hard enough to crack the old stone. Mara saw it. So did Caldress. The priestess's face sharpened. Ronan buried the reaction almost immediately, but not quickly enough. Why is she bleeding? His eyes did not leave the priestess. And do not lie to me beneath my own crown. Caldress stepped beside him in white robes braided with moonbone. Because the curse resists holy restraint. Mara lifted her head. Because your priestess tightens the chains when I breathe too deeply. The chapel guards reached for their blades. Ronan did not look at them. Stop. They stopped. That single word did more than silence the guards. It made the chamber listen. Beside Ronan stood his wolf, Kareth, a massive black royal beast with silver scars through his fur and cold blue eyes, too intelligent to belong to an animal. The wolf had followed the king into wars, coronations, executions, and treaty halls. Every child in the kingdom knew the royal wolf returned to Ronan's body when commanded. Tonight, Kareth did not look at Ronan. He looked at Mara. Caldress noticed first. Majesty. Ronan's gaze shifted to the wolf. Kareth. The wolf did not move. The crescent mark over Mara's heart burned colder. Not painful now. Awake. Kareth descended the final steps without permission. The guards backed away. Caldress lifted her moonbone staff. Do not let it near her. Ronan's voice lowered. He is my wolf, not while she breathes beneath the altar. Ronan's eyes sharpened. That was not an answer, he said. That was a confession. The air changed. Mara looked at Caldress. The priestess had spoken too quickly. Kareth crossed the chamber and stopped before Mara's chains. His enormous head lowered toward her wounded wrists. For one impossible breath, Mara thought he would bite through them. Instead, the Alpha King's wolf lay down beside her. Not near her. Beside her. His body pressed protectively along her chained legs, his black fur warm against the cold stone. His head rested across her lap, blue eyes fixed on Caldress. The chapel went utterly still. Ronan stared at his wolf. Mara stared at the beast guarding her as if he had known her longer than she had known herself. No wolf had ever answered her. No wolf had ever come when she was dragged, accused, bound, or hidden. Now the king's own wolf refused to leave her chains. Kareth, Ronan said. The command carried crown blood. The wolf closed his eyes. Caldress went pale. Majesty, step back. Ronan did not. Why? Because if the beast remains with her, the coronation rite may recognize her blood before yours. The words fell into the crypt like a blade. Mara stopped breathing. Ronan turned slowly. Explain. Caldress's calm returned. But her fingers tightened around the staff. She is marked by a forbidden moon curse. If that mark wakes under the chapel, it may confuse the old stones. No, Mara said. Her voice was hoarse, small, but the stones beneath her knees glowed. Caldress's eyes cut to her. Mara looked down at the light spreading under her blood. You are not afraid I will confuse them. The chains tightened. Pain tore through her shoulders. Ronan moved. Only one step. But it was enough. Enough for Mara to see rage flash through his face before discipline crushed it down. Enough for Caldress to see the same thing and decide he was becoming dangerous. The priestess slammed her staff into the floor. The curse must be sealed before the crown descends. The silver chains snapped tighter around Mara's throat. Kareth surged up with a snarl. Ronan caught him by the ruff, barely holding the beast back as its jaws opened toward Caldress. Kareth. Return. The wolf twisted against him. Return, Ronan commanded again. This time, the words shook dust from the ceiling. Kareth stopped fighting. Slowly, the black wolf turned his head and looked at the man who should have owned him. Then, in a voice that did not belong to any beast, he answered. No. The chapel crypt froze. Ronan's hand fell from his wolf's fur. Caldress whispered. Impossible. Kareth placed himself over Mara's chains again, his body a living wall between her and the priestess. The crescent mark over Mara's heart blazed through her shift. The false prayers carved into the chains began to burn away. New words appeared beneath them. Older than chapel law. Older than Ronan's crown. Older than the throne waiting upstairs. Not curse. Moon seal. Not danger to the kingdom. Last moonblood heir. Not beneath the crown. Before it, Ronan read the words in silence. Mara watched his face change. Not into softness. Into horror. Because he understood before she did. If the chapel stones were telling the truth, Mara was not a cursed woman chained for his coronation. She was the bloodline the coronation had been built to bury. Caldress lifted her staff again, and this time her voice lost all gentleness. Kill her now. Before the stones finished naming her, the guards hesitated. Ronan turned toward her. Slowly, the priestess did not retreat. Majesty, if she wakes fully, the crown will kneel. Your throne will answer her blood before yours. Mara's heart slammed against her ribs. There it was. The reason for the chains. The reason for the blood. The reason Caldress wanted her dead before dawn. Ronan looked from the priestess to Mara, then to Kareth, still guarding her like a vow made long before either of them had entered this crypt. Kareth, he said, quieter now. Why? The wolf lowered his head to Mara's chained hands. His answer filled the chapel like an old prayer returning to its altar. Because I have prayed to her blood since you were a child. The coronation bells above began to ring by themselves. Not for Ronan. For Mara. The coronation bells rang for Mara. One deep silver toll rolled through the chapel stone. Then another. Above the altar, the court stirred. Below it, Mara knelt in chains, while the sound meant for Ronan's crown trembled through her blood instead. Ronan stared at his wolf as if the beast had just broken something sacred inside him. Say that again? His voice was quiet, but the command inside it could have stopped a warhorse mid-charge. Kareth did not lower his eyes. The massive black wolf kept his body over Mara's chains, silver-scarred fur bristling as chapel moonlight gathered around him. I have prayed to her blood since you were a child. The words passed through the crypt like a blade drawn slowly from its sheath. Mara looked at the wolf. Prayed. To her blood. She almost laughed because the idea was too impossible to hold. No one had prayed to Mara Vale. No one had prayed for her. The palace had only kept her fed, watched, and hidden enough to make sure the mark over her heart never became a public question. Caldress stepped forward. That is not Kareth speaking. Kareth's lips lifted from his teeth. The priestess did not flinch. That made Mara more afraid. Caldress was not shocked anymore. She had moved past shock into calculation. Ronan saw it too. His pale eyes sharpened. Then who is? Caldress lifted her moonbone staff. The seal beneath her skin is using your wolf's mouth. That is what forbidden blood does. It imitates what men trust. Mara's chains tightened again. This time, Ronan noticed the priestess's fingers move around the staff before the metal bit into Mara's throat. His expression went deadly still. Release the chain. Caldress did not obey. The chapel guards looked between them. The coronation bells rang again. Above them, distant voices stirred. The court had heard. Caldress's face hardened. Majesty, if she is named before the crown touches your brow, the old rite will open. Every noble house in Thornmere will see the question your father died burying. Ronan took one step toward her. What question? The priestess's eyes flicked to Mara. Too quick. Enough. Mara felt the answer in the stones before Caldress spoke. Who came first? The crown, or the blood beneath it? The chapel floor flared. The hidden circle under Mara's knees widened, burning through dust, old wax, and dried black stains that had been scrubbed but never cleansed. Words appeared around the ring in ancient silver script. Blood before crown. Name before throne. Witness before coronation. Ronan read them. So did the guards. One of them whispered, "That is older than royal law." Caldress turned sharply. "Silence." Kareth rose. The wolf's movement was slow, controlled, and more terrifying than a lunge. He stood over Mara like a living altar, his shadow covering her wounded body. Ronan looked at the chains crossing her throat, then at the crescent mark burning beneath her torn shift, then at the blood glowing on the stone. His face lost all color. For 1 second, he did not look like an Alpha King inspecting a cursed prisoner. He looked like a man realizing his kingdom had survived by bleeding an innocent girl and calling it protection. His hand opened at his side, then closed. Hard. The black leather of his glove split across one knuckle. Caldress saw the break in him. She gave the guards the look Mara had feared from the beginning. Cut her throat. The crypt stopped breathing. Ronan moved faster than the command. His hand closed around the nearest guard's wrist before the blade cleared its sheath. Bone cracked. The guard gasped and dropped the knife. No one else moved. Ronan's voice came low. "Draw steel on her again, and you lose the hand before the blade sees light." Mara stared at him. She should not have felt anything. Not gratitude. Not hope. Hope was dangerous around powerful men. It made their brief mercies look like promises, but Kareth pressed his side more firmly against her chains. And for a moment, the cold stone under her knees felt less like a grave. Caldress's mouth tightened. "You risk the crown for a cursed woman?" Ronan looked at Mara, then back at the priestess. "No," he said. "I am asking why my crown requires her blood before it will sit on my head." The words changed the room, not because they were soft, because they were public. The guards heard them. The bells above answered them, and the chapel stones glowed brighter. Caldress lowered her staff. Her voice softened into the tone of a woman trying to guide a king away from a cliff. "Majesty, you were a child when the first prayer failed. You do not remember what your wolf did." Kareth went still. Ronan's face changed. "What prayer?" Mara felt the wolf's heartbeat against her legs. Slow, heavy, old with memory. Caldress glanced toward the stairs. "You were dying. Your wolf would not wake. The royal healers could not call him back. Your father brought you beneath this altar and ordered every chapel relic opened." Ronan did not blink. Caldress continued. "Kareth answered only when blood from the sealed line touched the old stones." Mara's chest tightened. The crescent mark over her heart burned brighter. Ronan's voice dropped. "Whose blood?" Caldress said nothing. Kareth answered. "Heir's." Mara's breath left her. The stones beneath her knees opened into moonlit memory. A small boy lying on the crypt floor, pale and fevered, silver veins crawling up his throat. A black wolf cub curled beside him, unmoving. A younger Caldress kneeling at the altar. A frightened girl being held by chapel guards, her small wrist cut over the stone. Mara knew the girl before she saw the face. Herself, younger, terrified, forgotten, bleeding into the old chapel while no one told her why. The memory shattered. Ronan stood frozen. His face had gone white beneath the shadows. For a moment, the Alpha King seemed unable to breathe. His gaze dropped to Mara's wrists again. And this time, the horror in him did not hide behind discipline. She had saved him before she even knew his name. Mara looked at him, and the truth struck both of them at once. Kareth had not prayed to her blood because of a curse. He had lived because of it. Ronan had lived because of it. And all these years, the kingdom had called the source of that survival dangerous. Caldress lifted her staff again, desperate now. "That blood was used under emergency law." Mara's voice shook. "Used." The word was small. The stones carried it. The chains around her wrists cracked. Caldress stepped back. Ronan looked at the broken link. Then at Mara. Something shifted between them. Not love. Not trust. Something sharper. Debt. Recognition. A wound shared without permission. Above them, the chapel doors slammed open. Voices flooded the stairwell. Nobles. Priestesses. Coronation witnesses. They had come down to see why the bells were ringing. Caldress turned toward them before Ronan could speak. "Witness the curse attempting to steal the coronation." The first nobles reached the lower steps. They saw Mara chained beneath the altar. They saw Kareth guarding her. They saw Ronan standing between her and the priestess. And they saw the oldest law burning under Mara's blood. Blood before the crown. The crown must kneel. A murmur spread through the stairwell. Ronan's future crown, carried by 2 temple boys on a velvet cushion, began to tremble above them. The boys tried to hold it steady. They could not. The black coronation crown slid from the cushion and struck the first step with a sharp metallic sound. Then another. Then another. It descended the stairs by itself, not falling wildly, but moving as if pulled by an older law. Each step made the chapel stones flare brighter. The court backed away. Kareth whispered, "No." The crown reached the bottom of the crypt. It rolled once across the black stone, then stopped at Mara's chained feet. For one breath, nothing moved. Then the crown tilted forward. Slowly, deliberately. Its highest point touched the blood-glowing floor before her knees. The coronation crown bowed. The coronation crown bowed at Mara's feet. No one in the crypt breathed. Above the stairs, nobles, priestesses, and coronation witnesses stared down at the impossible sight. The black crown meant for Ronan Veyr had crossed the chapel steps by itself, and lowered its highest point to the blood-lit stone before a chained woman. Notfallen, bowed. Kareth stood over Mara's chains, black fur bristling, blue eyes fixed on the court. Kareth recovered first. "Do not be deceived," she said. "The curse is forcing the crown to mimic submission." Mara looked at the crown, then at Kareth. "If it is only mimicry, why are you afraid?" The priestess's calm cracked, only for a breath. Then she struck. Her moonbone staff slammed into the bowed crown. Black moonlight burst from the staff and wrapped around the crown like a chain. The crown jerked violently away from Mara's feet, scraping across the stone as Kareth dragged it toward Ronan. Kareth lunged. The spell threw him back against the chapel wall. Mara gasped as if the blow had struck her own ribs. Ronan moved toward the wolf. Kareth snapped, "No. Let the beast fall. The rite must be completed before her blood finishes waking." Ronan stopped. Slowly, he turned. "What rite?" Kareth's eyes flicked toward the nobles above them. Too late. The court heard the fear beneath her words. Mara's chains tightened again. The crescent mark over her heart burned brighter. Not like poison now, but like something trying to open from the inside. The crown dragged another foot toward Ronan, then stopped. It resisted Kareth's spell, trembling so violently the black moonlight around it began to crack. A nobleman whispered, "The crown does not want him." Ronan heard. So did Mara. So did Kareth. The priestess lifted her voice before panic could spread. "If she is named before coronation, no king will wear that crown unless her blood witnesses him first." The court erupted, but Mara only saw the floor beneath her knees changing. The false chapel prayers around her chains burned away one by one. Beneath them, silver letters rose through the stone, like bones surfacing from a grave. Blood before crown, name before throne. Mara stared at the second line. Nama. That was what the chains were holding back. Not only her body, not only the moon seal, her name. Kareth saw where she looked and struck again. This time not at the crown. At Mara. The staff head flared black. Kareth forced himself up with a wounded snarl, but Ronan moved faster. His sword came free. Steel met moonbone with a violent crack of silver sparks. The blow drove Kareth back one step. The entire court saw the uncrowned Alpha King raise steel against his own priestess. Kareth's face went cold. "You choose her over the crown?" Ronan looked down at the crown still fighting her spell, then at Mara, chained, bleeding, and glowing under the old law his coronation had tried to bury. "No," he said. "I refuse a crown that needs her silenced before it will touch me." Mara's breath caught. She did not trust him. Not yet. But the words struck the chains like heat. One link at her wrist split. Kareth saw it. Fear sharpened her face into something ugly. "Then you are already compromised." She lifted her staff toward Mara's heart. "Seal the moon mark." The crescent over Mara's chest turned cold. Pain slammed through her. The glowing letters on the floor blurred. Kareth threw himself over her again, teeth bared at the priestess. Ronan stepped between Kareth and Mara, sword raised, but the spell had already entered the chains. Mara felt it closing, not around her throat, around something deeper. Her name. The first part of it tried to rise through the stone and was forced back down. She cried out. Ronan's face changed. What is she doing? Caldress's voice shook with rage. What should have been done when she was born? The court went silent. There. The truth. Mara lifted her head through the pain. You knew what I was. Caldress did not answer. She did not need to. The crown on the floor cracked against the black moonlight binding it. Silver fire spilled from the fracture. Ronan saw it and made his choice. He turned away from the crown. Away from the court. Toward Mara. Caldress screamed. If you step to her, you will lose the throne. Ronan did not stop. Then it was never mine. The words shook the crypt. Mara stared at him. Kareth lowered his head beside her chained hands and whispered. Ask. Mara could barely breathe. Ask what? What they buried. The moon seal over her heart burned again. Not cold now. Bright. Mara pressed her bleeding palm to the glowing stone. What did you bury? The floor split open beneath her knees. A single silver letter rose first. M. The court leaned forward. The letter burned brighter, then twisted. Not Mara. The false name cracked. The silver fire carved a second shape beside it. An old moon glyph. A true name mark. Caldress went white. No. The glyph spread into the first true letter of the hidden bloodline. Not M. Le. Ronan went still. And above the altar, the coronation bells rang again. Le. Ronan went still. The single letter burned beneath Mara's blood like a wound opening in the floor. Not M. Not Mara. Something older. Something Caldress feared enough to lose all grace. The coronation bells rang again above the altar, and this time the sound cracked one of the stained glass moon saints overhead. Silver light spilled down the stairwell and struck the crypt floor. The letter L brightened until every noble on the steps could see it. Caldress lifted her staff with both hands. Do not let the name complete. The chapel guards hesitated. Kareth lowered his head over Mara's chained wrists and growled. Ronan stepped closer to Mara. The crown still lay on the floor between them, split with silver fire, waiting. Caldress saw his choice forming before he made it. Majesty, if you touch her chains, the crown may never answer you again. Ronan looked down at the bowed crown, then at Mara. Her face was pale from pain, her wrists bleeding, the crescent over her heart glowing through torn cloth, and the first true letter of her hidden bloodline burning beneath her knees. His expression changed. Not soft. Worse. Certain. Then let it learn to answer truth. Caldress struck. Black moonlight shot from her staff toward Mara's heart. Ronan moved first. His sword cut through the spell before it reached her, but the impact threw him back against the crypt wall. The court cried out. Kareth lunged again, but the chains around Mara snapped tight and dragged her upright against the iron moon ring. Pain tore a sound out of her. The letter L flickered. Caldress saw it weakening and smiled. There. The sealed line still knows how to be quiet. Mara's head lifted. The words should have broken her. Instead, they found something already burning. I was never quiet, she whispered. You buried the sound. The floor answered. The L flared. A second mark began to rise beside it. Caldress's smile vanished. No. She slammed her staff into the stone. The chains around Mara's throat tightened until her breath vanished. Kareth roared and threw himself against the silver links, biting at them until blood darkened his muzzle. Ronan pushed himself up from the wall, staggered once, then crossed the crypt with his sword in hand. Caldress turned on him. Choose carefully. Break those chains, and the court will see you as the king who freed the bloodline meant to judge him. Ronan stopped before Mara, close enough for her to see blood at his temple, close enough for him to see the chain cutting into her throat. The court waited. Caldress waited. Mara waited too, though she hated herself for it. Ronan lifted his sword, not toward Caldress, toward the chains. Caldress screamed, Ronan! He struck. The first chain shattered. Silver fragments flew across the crypt. The crown on the floor flared so brightly the nobles shielded their eyes. Mara fell forward, but Kareth caught her weight against his body before she hit the stone. The wolf pressed his head beneath her shoulder, holding her upright like a vow with fur and breath. Ronan struck again. The chain across her waist broke, then the one at her wrists, then the one at her ankles. Each broken link made the letter beneath Mara burn brighter. Le. Then another shape. Not a full letter yet. A curve of moonfire. A name trying to remember itself. Caldress backed away from it. You do not know what you are freeing. Ronan's voice was low. Neither do you. That is why you are afraid. Mara looked at him. She wanted to hate him cleanly. It would have been easier if he had remained only crown, only king, only another man who arrived too late and called it mercy. But there was blood on his face now because he had stood between her and the priestess. There was horror in him because he knew her blood had saved him as a child. And there was something else. A restraint that did not feel like distance anymore. It felt like a man holding himself back because she had been held enough. Caldress raised her staff one last time. The moonbone cracked under her grip. If she completes the name, every coronation oath must pass through her. Every wolf in Thornmere will know the throne was second. Mara leaned against Kareth, trembling. The broken chains lay around her like dead snakes. She looked at the crown still bowed on the stone, then at the watching court. For the first time, no one called her cursed. They were too afraid. Good. Let fear tell the truth before courage learned how. Mara pressed her palm to the glowing letter. What is the name? The crypt shook. The moon seal over her heart opened like an eye of silver light. A memory rose from the stone. A woman running through the chapel crypt years ago with blood on her dress and a baby in her arms. Caldress younger, blocking the stairs. Ronan's father standing beside the altar, crown already on his head, saying, "If the child lives, the crown kneels." The woman held the baby closer, then let it kneel. Mara's breath broke. The woman's face turned. Dark hair, silver eyes. The same crescent mark burning over her heart. Her mother. The memory shattered before Mara could reach for it. Caldress's voice cut through the glow. Her mother betrayed the crown. The stones answered with one word. Protected. The court heard it. Ronan heard it. Mara heard it most of all. The curve beside the L sharpened into a second letter. Lu. Caldress stumbled back as if struck. Ronan stared at the forming name. Kareth lowered himself before Mara, not guarding her now. Bowing. Not as beast to master. As prayer to altar. Mara looked down at the two burning letters. Lu. The name was not complete. But it was enough to make the crown crack again. A silver line split through its black metal from base to highest point. Then every wolf above the chapel began to howl. Not for coronation. Note for Ronan. For the woman whose buried name had started to rise. Lu. The two letters burned beneath Mara's palm. Not complete. Not safe. But alive. Every wolf above the chapel howled until the stones trembled. The sound rolled down through the altar, through the stairwell, through the crypt, and wrapped around Mara like a memory her body knew before her mind could reach it. Caldress staggered back from the glowing name. For the first time, the priestess looked old. Not holy. Not calm. Old, frightened and furious that something she had buried was still breathing. Ronan stood between her and Mara, sword lowered but ready. Blood running from his temple into the edge of his jaw. The crown lay cracked on the floor behind him, still tilted toward Mara's feet. The court watched from the stairs. No one knew whether to kneel, flee, or call the sight blasphemy. Mara looked at the two burning letters. Lu. The name pulled at her chest. The moon seal over her heart pulsed in answer, opening and closing like a hidden eye. Caldress saw the movement and lifted her staff again. Ronan's blade rose instantly. The priestess smiled thinly. Strike me if you wish. It will not stop the name. Mara's blood went cold. Ronan heard the trap in her voice. What did you do? Caldress looked past him to Mara. I did what your mother begged me to do. The crypt stilled. Mara's fingers froze against the glowing stone. My mother did not beg you. You do not remember her? The words cut deeper because they were true. Mara had only fragments now. Dark hair, silver eyes. Blood on a dress. A baby clutched against a trembling chest. Caldress stepped closer, slow enough that Ronan did not strike. Your mother knew what your blood would do. She knew the crown would kneel. She knew kings would die fighting over you. She asked me to seal you before the world made you its altar. Kareth growled. Not loud. Warning. Caldress ignored him. Her voice softened. You think I chained you because I hated you. I chained you because your mother understood what mercy costs. Mara's throat tightened. For one breath, the lie almost worked, because it carried the shape of something she wanted. A mother who had chosen protection. A wound with reason. A cage with love inside it. Then the stone beneath her palm burned hotter. The memory returned. Her mother's voice, broken but clear. If the child lives, the crown kneels. Then let it kneel. Mara lifted her head. No, she whispered. Caldress's expression hardened. Mara pushed herself upright beside Kareth. You keep turning cages into mercy because you know people fear cruelty less when it comes dressed as protection. Ronan went still. The words struck him too. Good. Let them. Caldress's eyes sharpened. Bold words from a girl who cannot even finish her own name. Mara looked down. The letters trembled. Lu. Incomplete. Caldress raised her staff toward the name. Then let us end this before she remembers enough to ruin every oath above us. Ronan stepped fully in front of Mara. No. The court inhaled. Caldress's face twisted. You are not crowned yet. Ronan looked at the crown on the floor, then at the nobles on the stairs, then at Mara. No, he said. I am not. He reached for the clasp at his throat and tore the silver coronation cloak from his shoulders. It fell across the stone like a rejected banner. The court erupted. Caldress stared at him. What are you doing? Ronan's voice carried up the stairwell. Refusing coronation until the woman beneath my altar is named before the court. A noble lord shouted, Majesty, the kingdom needs a crown. Ronan did not look away from Mara. Then the kingdom should have built one that did not require a woman in chains. Silence fell hard. Mara stared at him. She did not forgive him. He had benefited from her blood before he knew her name. He had descended into this crypt as a king inspecting danger. But now he stood uncrowned before his court and refused the only power they had prepared for him. Caldress's hand shook around the staff. You will fracture Thornmere. Ronan's eyes turned colder. No, you already did. The moon seal over Mara's heart flared. The letters beneath her palm brightened. Lu became Lum. Madagaspid. The sound echoed through the crypt. Kareth lowered his head. Ronan's wolf whispered. Again. Caldress screamed and struck the floor. Black moonlight surged toward the name. Mara did not wait for Ronan. She pressed both hands to the stone and held the letters with her blood. Pain tore through her arms. The black moonlight hit her palms and tried to bury the name back under false prayer. She felt it clawing at the edges of herself, trying to drag Mara Vale over the rising truth like a shroud. Kareth threw his body around her. Ronan struck the spell from the other side. Sword, wolf, and blood met black moonlight at once. The crypt exploded in silver fire. Caldress flew backward into the altar wall. The crown cracked again. This time, it did not bow. It opened. A seam split down the middle of the black metal, revealing silver moonfire trapped inside like a heart that had been sealed for generations. The court fell silent. Mara looked at the crown. The crown looked back. Not with eyes. With need. It wanted to be worn. It wanted to be witnessed. It wanted her blood to say yes before it touched Ronan's brow. Mara understood then. Blood before crown did not mean she was meant to rule over every king. It meant no king was meant to rise over buried blood. The old law was not asking her to take the throne. It was asking her to judge whether the throne deserved to stand. Caldress pushed herself up, breathing hard. Do not let her near it. Ronan looked at Mara. What do you choose? The question moved through her slowly. Not what are you? Not what does the crown need? Not what will save my throne. What do you choose? Mara stepped away from Kareth, the wolf letter. Ronan stepped aside. The court watched her walk toward the cracked coronation crown, barefoot, bleeding. With half her true name burning behind her, she stopped before it. The crown trembled. Caldress whispered, If you touch it, every oath in Thornmere will know your blood. Mara looked at the priestess. Good. Then she knelt before the crown. Not as servant, not as sacrifice. As witness, she placed one bleeding hand on the broken black metal. The silver fire inside the crown rushed into her palm. The floor beneath her blazed. Lum became Luma. Ronan went utterly still. Kareth bowed his head. And from somewhere far below the chapel, a woman's voice whispered through the stones. "My daughter." The whisper rose from beneath the chapel like a hand reaching through centuries of stone. Mara stopped breathing. The crown under her palm burned silver white, not hot enough to hurt, only bright enough to make every old wound in the crypt visible. Blood on the floor. Broken chain links. Black stains hidden beneath altar wax. The place where a child's wrist had once been cut open to save a dying prince. "My daughter." The voice came again. Softer. Closer. Mara's fingers tightened around the cracked crown. Caldris went still against the altar wall. Not afraid of Mara now. Afraid of the voice. Ronan saw it. So did Kareth. The black wolf lifted his head, ears forward, body tense with a grief too old to belong only to a beast. Mara whispered, "Mother?" The chapel stones answered with moonlight. A figure formed in the silver fire rising from the floor. A woman in a torn white cloak, dark hair falling loose around a pale face, crescent mark burning over her heart. She was not fully alive, not fully dead. A memory held under stone by a name no one had been allowed to finish. Mara knew her before recognition became thought. The same eyes. The same mark. The same wound the world had called dangerous because it refused to stay buried. Ronan stepped back. Not away from fear. Away from a moment that was not his to enter. That mattered. Mara felt it and hated that it mattered. The woman looked at Mara as if seeing both the child she had lost and the chained woman she had become. "They told you I begged them to seal you," the woman said. Mara's throat tightened. Caldris pushed herself upright. "Enough." The silver figure turned toward the priestess. The whole crypt darkened around her. "No, Caldris. Enough was the night you took my child from my arms and called it mercy." The court above erupted in whispers. Mara looked at Caldris. The priestess's face hardened. "I saved the kingdom. You saved the crown from kneeling." The words struck the floor. The cracked crown pulsed beneath Mara's palm. Ronan's jaw tightened. Caldris turned toward him quickly. "Majesty, whatever speaks from that stone is not a mother. It is blood memory. It will say anything to complete the naming." Ronan did not answer her. He looked at Mara instead. "What do you want to ask?" Mara stared at him. The question opened something sharper than hope. He did not ask what the kingdom needed. He did not ask what would protect his throne. He did not even ask what the ghost wanted. He asked her. Mara turned back to the woman in silver fire. Her voice shook. "Did you seal me?" "No." The answer came without hesitation. Mara's knees weakened. The woman stepped closer, light bending around her. "I hid your name because I had minutes, not power. I gave the first half to stone. I gave the last half to blood. I prayed you would live long enough to choose whether the crown deserved to hear it." Mara looked down. The letters beneath her palm burned brighter. "Luma. Incomplete. Waiting." Caldris shouted. "She lies." The crown cracked louder. Ronan's sword lifted by 1 inch. Caldris saw it and changed her target. She turned to the court. "Listen to me. If the girl completes that name, no coronation oath will stand unless she permits it. Your lands, your titles, your blood rights, everything sworn under the crown can be questioned." Fear moved through the nobles. That fear was Caldris's real weapon. Not moonbone. Not chains. Fear dressed as order. A lord on the stairs called, "Majesty, bind her until the right is understood." Another said, "The crown cannot kneel to a prisoner." Kareth growled. Mara's mother looked at the court with sorrow colder than anger. That is how it begins. Not with blades. With men asking to delay truth until power feels safe. Mara closed her eyes. The crown under her palm trembled. It wanted the name. The court feared it. Ronan needed it. Caldris hated it. But none of that answered the only question that mattered. Mara opened her eyes. "What happens if I finish it?" Her mother's face softened with pain. "The moon seal opens. The crown must be witnessed. The throne must answer what it buried. And every wolf bound by crown. Blood will remember the blood that came before." Ronan went still. Kareth lowered his head. Mara heard what the answer did not say. Ronan's wolf. Ronan's life. Every old prayer. Everything would change. Caldris saw the hesitation and struck. Not with the staff. With the chains. Every broken link on the floor rose at once like silver serpents. They wrapped around Mara's arms, throat, and waist, dragging her backward from the crown. The silver fire under her palm broke away. Luma flickered. Her mother's image shuddered. Ronan moved. Kareth moved. But Mara spoke first. No. It was not loud. It did not need to be. The broken chains stopped. For one heartbeat, the entire crypt held still. Mara stared at the silver links around her wrists. All her life, chains had moved her. Palace rules, priestess hands, chapel records, mercy, curse, necessary. This time, her voice had stopped them. Caldress's face went pale. Mara stood. The chains fell from her body one by one, not broken by Ronan, not bitten through by Kareth, released by her. She stepped back to the crown and placed both hands on it. The floor burned silver. Luma became Lumar. The court cried out. Ronan's eyes fixed on the name. Caldress screamed, "Do not let the last letter rise." Mara looked at her mother. "What is the rest?" The woman in silver fire smiled through tears. "You already know it." Mara's heart slammed once. The crescent over her chest opened fully, not like a wound, like an eye waking. A final letter began to form beneath her blood. Caldress raised her staff with both hands, ready to shatter it. Ronan stepped in front of Mara. Kareth stepped beside him. For the first time, king and wolf stood together, not above her, before the blow meant for her. Caldress's staff came down. The crypt flashed black. And Mara spoke the unfinished name into the dark. Lumara. The name left Mara's mouth in one breath. Not loud. Not forced. Whole. The black flash from Caldress's staff struck the air before Mara's heart and split apart like smoke against dawn. Silver moonfire burst from the crescent mark on Mara's chest. Flooding the crypt so brightly the court cried out and covered their eyes. The final letter burned beneath her feet. Lumara. Not Mara Vale. Not cursed woman. Not necessary restraint. Lumara of the sealed moonblood. The chapel stones answered at once. Heir named. The words did not appear in fire. They rang through every chain, every altar stone, every silver prayer nail hammered into the crypt walls. The sound tore the false holiness out of the place. Caldress staggered backward. Her moonbone staff cracked down the center. Ronan stood before Mara with his sword raised. But the blow had not reached him either. Kareth stood beside him, black fur glowing at the edges, silver scars blazing like living runes. For the first time, Mara saw them together clearly. Not king and beast, not master and wolf, two halves of a prayer that had always been pointed toward her blood. The coronation crown opened on the floor. Its black metal split fully, revealing a core of silver flame that rose upward like a heart escaping a cage. The crown did not move toward Ronan. It moved toward Mara. Caldress screamed, "Do not touch it." Mara did not. She had learned enough. Crowns were dangerous when frightened hands rushed to hold them. The silver flame stopped before her face, trembling as if waiting. Ronan lowered his sword slowly. He looked at the name burning beneath her feet. Lumara. Then at heir. His voice came rough. "That is your name?" Mara should have answered. But the name still moved through her body, filling places that had been hollow so long she had mistaken emptiness for peace. Her mother's silver figure stood behind the crown flame, fading now, but smiling through grief. "It was the first name I gave you," she said. "Before they cut it from the records. Before they taught you to answer to less." Mara's throat closed. Caldress's voice snapped across the crypt. "Blood memory lies. The crown cannot be trusted while the seal is open." Ronan turned to her. His face was no longer pale. It was cold. "You knew her name." Caldress lifted her chin. "I knew what it would do. You knew she saved me. I knew her blood was useful." The court heard it. Mara heard it. And something inside Ronan broke very quietly. Useful. The word hung in the crypt like a dirty blade. Ronan stepped toward Caldress. "She was a child. So were you." The answer struck him. Caldress seized the wound and twisted. "Would you rather have died? Would you rather your wolf stayed empty? Your father chose survival. I served the crown." Kareth growled, deep and furious. Mara felt the growl inside her ribs. Ronan looked at his wolf. "Kareth, This time, his voice held no command. Only pain. The wolf turned his blue eyes toward him, and the crypt opened another memory. A boy, still fevered, waking after Mara's blood touched the stones. Ronan's small hand reaching weakly toward the black wolf cub beside him. The cub's eyes opening silver blue for the first time. Young Ronan whispering through cracked lips. Stay. The wolf had not looked at the boy first. It had looked toward the altar, toward the place where little Mara was being carried away. Wrist bound, eyes empty with shock. Then the cub bowed its head, as if making a vow. The memory shifted. Years passed in fragments. A young Ronan asleep beneath a moon window. The wolf curled at his bedside but facing the chapel. A boy prince kneeling after his first battle, hands bloody, while Kareth stared north toward the sealed wing where Mara had been kept. A younger Kareth pressing his head to the chapel floor every full moon, silent and still, while Ronan slept unaware, praying, not to the crown, not to the moon above the palace, to the bloodline under the altar, to her. The memory vanished. Ronan did not move. His face looked carved open. Mara stared at Kareth. The wolf lowered his head to her. I remembered what he was made to forget, Kareth said. Ronan's breath shook once. That was all. But Mara saw it. The Alpha King who could stop guards with a word and split moon spells with steel had just learned his wolf had carried devotion to a chained girl through every year of his life. Caldress spoke quickly, too quickly. A wolf is instinct, not law. The coronation crown flared. Kareth bared his teeth. A wolf is oath before crown. The court fell silent. Above the stairs, one elderly noblewoman slowly lowered her head. Then a young guard. Then one of the temple boys who had carried the crown. Caldress saw the movement and panicked. Do not kneel, she snapped. If you kneel now, you admit her blood before your king. No one fully knelt. Not yet. But no one stood easily anymore. Mara felt the weight of their eyes. Fear. Ava. Doubt. Hunger. The same court that would have watched her throat cut moments ago now wondered what shape power would take if it moved through her instead. She hated it, almost as much as the chains. Ronan saw that too. He turned, placing himself not between Mara and danger this time, but between Mara and the court's hunger. Look at me, he commanded them. The nobles obeyed. His voice carried up the stairwell. No one claims her, no house, no priestess, no crown, no king. Caldress's face twisted. You cannot say that. Ronan's eyes did not leave the court. I just did. Mara stared at his back. A dangerous warmth moved through her chest. Not forgiveness, not trust, but recognition that this time, he was not speaking over her. He was clearing the room around her choice. Her mother's figure began to fade. Mara turned quickly. Wait. The silver woman smiled sadly. The name is awake. I cannot remain unless the seal opens fully. How? The woman's gaze moved to the crown, then to Ronan, then back to Mara. The crown must ask. The blood must answer. The king must witness without taking. Mara swallowed. Caldress laughed, sharp and desperate. Impossible. No king witnesses power he cannot command. Ronan turned toward Mara. The whole crypt waited. The crown flame hovered between them. Mara looked at him. At the man her blood had saved before she knew his name. At the king whose wolf had prayed to her in secret. At the crown that wanted to kneel, and the court that wanted to own the meaning of it. Ronan lowered his sword. Then he lowered himself to one knee. The court gasped. Caldress went still with horror. Mara stopped breathing. Ronan looked up at her from the stone. Not as a crowned king. Not as a master asking blessing. As a man finally choosing witness over command. The crown asks, he said. The silver flame turned toward Mara. Her true name burned brighter beneath her feet. Caldress screamed and lifted the broken staff for one final strike. But before she could bring it down, every chain in the crypt rose from the floor and wrapped around her wrists. Mara had not commanded them. The chapel had. The silver flame before Mara opened like an eye. And the crown asked in the old moon tongue, Does the blood permit the crown to rise? The question filled the crypt. Not loud. Not gentle. Ancien. Every person on the chapel stairs heard it. Every wolf above the altar fell silent. Even the coronation bells stopped mid-echo, as if the kingdom itself had leaned closer to hear Mara's answer. Ronan remained on one knee before her. The sight unsettled the court more than the glowing stones, more than the broken chains, more than Kareth lying beside her, as if the king's own wolf had chosen her before the crown ever could. An uncrowned alpha kneeling beneath his own chapel. A chained woman standing over him with her true name burning under her bare feet. Lumara. Mara stared at the silver flame hovering before her. The crown was asking. Not taking. Not commanding. Asking. That alone made her throat tighten. All her life, power had moved around her without asking anything. Caldress had chained her. The chapel had hidden her. The court had judged her. Ronan's father had used her blood. Even Ronan had lived because of her before she knew what had been taken. Now the crown waited for her voice. Caldress fought against the chains wrapped around her wrists. Do not answer it. Kareth's growl rolled through the crypt. Caldress turned on the court instead. Do you understand what this means? If she refuses, there is no coronation, no crown, no completed oath. Thornmere wakes without a king. Fear moved through the nobles. Mara felt it turn toward her. There it was. The old trap. Make her responsible for the kingdom that had bled her. Make refusal look like cruelty. Make obedience look like mercy. Ronan lifted his head. No. The court quieted. He did not stand. He did not reach for the crown. His eyes stayed on Mara. If she refuses, that is her answer. The kingdom will not call her cruelty what we forced her to carry. Mara looked at him. A little too quickly. His words did not heal the old wound, but they stopped it from being used again. Caldress's mouth tightened. You speak like a man already ruled. Ronan's expression went cold. I speak like a man hearing the truth under his own altar for the first time. The silver flame pulsed. The crown asked again. Does the blood permit the crown to rise? Mara looked down at Ronan. He was powerful even kneeling. That was the dangerous part. A weak man kneeling meant little. A strong man kneeling by choice made the whole room tremble. What happens if I say yes? She asked. The crown flame brightened. Kareth answered before it could. The crown rises witnessed. It cannot command against the blood it once buried. Ronan's jaw tightened. He accepted the blow without looking away. Mara asked, and if I say no? The flame dimmed. Her mother's fading voice whispered from the stone. Then no king rises today. The court stirred again. Caldress smiled through pain. There. Do you hear it? One girl can halt a kingdom. Mara turned toward her. No, she said. One girl can stop a lie. The chains around Caldress tightened. The priestess gasped. Mara looked back at the crown. She thought of the small girl whose wrist had been cut over the altar. The years of being called cursed. The mark hidden under cloth. The chains dressed in prayers. The wolf who remembered. The king kneeling because, at last, he had learned not to take the answer before she gave it. Mara stepped closer to Ronan. The court held its breath. She did not touch his face. She did not touch the crown. She placed her bleeding hand on the stone between them. If the crown rises, she said. It rises under witness. The silver flame lifted. If the king rules, she continued. He rules with every buried name restored. The chapel stones flared. If the court swears oath, it swears first to never again bleed a child in secret and call it law. A low sound moved through the crypt. Not protest. Recognition. The silver flame bent toward Ronan. Mara's voice became steadier. And if he breaks that oath, the crown kneels again. Ronan's eyes flashed. Not with anger. With understanding. He bowed his head. Witnessed. The word left him like a vow. The crown flame turned back to Mara, waiting for the final answer. Caldress screamed. No. She ripped one hand free of the chapel chains, tearing skin as she lifted the broken moonbone staff. Black light gathered at its cracked tip, aimed not at Mara this time. At Ronan. Mara saw the truth instantly. If Caldress could kill him while kneeling before Mara, the court would call Mara the omen that murdered a king. Kareth leapt. But Mara moved first. Not with her body, with the name under her feet. Lumara. The full name rang through the crypt. The black light stopped inches from Ronan's chest. It trembled, then turned silver. Caldress stared in horror. Mara looked at the priestess. You do not get to use my witness as your weapon. The spell reversed. It struck Caldress's staff and shattered it into white dust. The priestess fell to her knees. This time, no chain pulled her down. The chapel did. Every false prayer carved under her authority burned across the walls. Every hidden order, every sealed execution, every child bled beneath emergency law. The crypt lit with crimes too numerous for the court to look at cleanly. Mara's breath shook. Ronan rose slowly. Not before the crown permitted it. After Mara's word had turned the lie back on itself. The silver flame entered the cracked coronation crown. Black metal burned away from the inside, leaving a crown of dark silver and living moonlight. It lifted from the floor, no longer dragging itself toward power, no longer resisting Caldress. It hovered between Ronan and Mara. The crown asked no third time. It waited. Ronan looked at Mara. Do I have your witness? The court went silent. Mara could feel every eye on her. This was the place where old stories would make her forgive too quickly. Where a wounded king's humility would be treated as payment enough. It was not. You have witness, Mara said. Ronan's face changed. A breath of relief. Too soon. Mara continued. Not absolution. He lowered his head. I know. Good. Let him know. The crown descended. Not onto Ronan's head. Not yet. First it lowered to Mara. Its silver edge touched the glowing blood at her feet. Then rose again, carrying a thin line of moonlight from the stone. Only then did it settle onto Ronan's brow. The crypt shook. The coronation completed beneath the chapel, not above it. Not before nobles on polished marble. Before chains. Blood. A wolf who remembered. And the woman the crown had asked, before it dared to rise. Ronan closed his eyes as the crown touched him. When he opened them, they were not only pale gray. They carried silver at the center. The moon seal over Mara's heart answered. For one heartbeat she felt the crown through him. Not ruling her. Recognizing her. Kareth bowed his head to both of them. Then the altar above split open. Moonlight poured into the crypt like a river. And from the walls, the buried names of the sealed line began to appear one by one. The buried names appeared one by one. They burned across the chapel walls in silver fire, rising from beneath layers of prayer, ash, and old blood. Names the court had never spoken. Names the chapel records had cut away. Names sealed under emergency law until the kingdom forgot they had ever belonged to living women. Lusara, Lunith, Leora, Lume, Lumara. Mara stared at the last one. Her name. Not complete only because the stones had finished carving it. Complete because the wall remembered what the kingdom had tried to erase. The nobles on the stairwell fell silent. No one asked whether the names were real. They felt too old to be forged. Too wounded to be theater. Caldress knelt on the crypt floor, her broken staff scattered around her like white bone dust. The silver chains that had once held Mara now circled the priestess's wrists. Not cutting yet. Only waiting. Ronan stood crowned at last. But the crown no longer looked like the same thing meant for the ceremony above. Its black metal had burned into dark silver, and at its center lived one thin line of moonlight taken from Mara's blood. That frightened the court more than if she had taken the crown herself. Kareth stood beside her, massive and silent. His blue eyes fixed on the walls. Mara read the names again. So many. Too many. Her voice shook. What happened to them? No one answered. The chapel did. The wall behind Caldress opened into memory. Women kneeling beneath the same altar. Girls with crescent marks over their hearts. Mothers holding infants, while priestesses took blood from their wrists. Each one hidden before coronation. Each one called cursed when the crown trembled. Each one used to steady a throne that feared asking permission. The court watched in horror. Mara watched without blinking. If she looked away, the dead would be abandoned again. Caldress lifted her head. We kept Thornmere alive. Mara turned toward her. The priestess's face was pale, but her voice had hardened into conviction again. That frightened Mara more than panic. Border wars ended because the crown held, Caldress said. Royal wolves survived because the bloodline answered. Children slept behind warded walls because the sealed line bled beneath this chapel. Do you think kingdoms are protected by kindness? Ronan's jaw tightened. Mara felt the old trap forming again. Survival as excuse. Peace as knife. Protection as chain. She stepped toward Caldress. Did they choose? The priestess did not answer. Mara asked again. Did they choose? The chapel stones flared beneath the question. Caldress's mouth tightened. Choice is a luxury. Kingdoms cannot always afford, Kareth snarled. Ronan's hand closed around his sword, but he did not draw it. Mara saw the restraint. Good. This answer had to be hers. She looked at the names. Then the kingdom survived by theft. A sound moved through the court. Not denial. Fear. Because the word was plain enough that even noble mouths could not polish it. Caldress's eyes sharpened. And what will you do, Lumara? Undo it all? Let the walls weaken? Let every rival pack smell uncertainty? Let mothers bury sons because you want the dead to feel respected? Mara stopped. There was the blade under the priestess's tongue. Not hatred. A question ugly enough to matter. What did justice cost the living? The crown on Ronan's brow pulsed once. Mara felt it waiting. The court waited too. Caldress wanted her to choose quickly. Rage could be named dangerous. Mercy could be used. Fear could be guided. Mara chose neither. She turned to Ronan. Open the chapel records. Caldress went still. Ronan did not ask why. He looked to the oldest priestess on the stairs. A woman whose hands shook around a ring of keys. All of them. The priestess looked at Caldress, then at Mara, then bowed her head. Yes, Majesty. Mara's voice cut through the crypt. Not by his command alone. The priestess froze. The court turned back to her. Mara lifted her chin. By witness. By the crown that knelt. By every name on these walls. The silver names brightened. Ronan looked at her. Something like pride moved across his face before he restrained it. Mara noticed. She also noticed that he restrained it. That mattered. The old priestess sank to her knees. By witness. The words unlocked something. Behind the altar wall, stone shelves groaned open. Black ledgers slid into view, each bound in wolfhide and silver clasps. Record after record. Generation after generation. Births crossed out. Names rewritten. Blood taken. Coronations completed. Mara stepped toward the nearest ledger. Caldress surged up. The chains around her wrists snapped tight, pulling her back. Do not open that, she said. Her voice held terror now. Not for the kingdom. For herself. Mara opened the ledger. The first page carried a drawing of the moon seal over her heart. Below it was written, when the sealed blood wakes, the crown must kneel or confess it has stolen breath from the moonline. Ronan read over her shoulder. His face changed. Mara turned the page. There, written in Caldress's own hand, were the orders for Mara's chains before coronation dawn. Keep the last moonblood heir alive until the king is crowned. Bleed only if the crown resists. Kill if the name begins. The court saw. Caldress closed her eyes. Mara's hands trembled around the ledger. Not from surprise. From the final death of any illusion that the priestess had misunderstood. Caldress had known. Every chain, every cut, every false prayer. Chosen. Ronan's voice was cold enough to freeze breath. You ordered her death before I entered the crypt. Caldress opened her eyes. I ordered protection for the throne. No, Mara said. The words stopped them both. She looked at Caldress. You ordered fear to survive one more coronation. The crown on Ronan's brow bowed slightly toward Mara. Not visible to all, but enough. Caldress saw it. Her face twisted. You think you have won because the crown listens to you? She whispered. The crown is not the only thing buried under Thornmere. The chapel went cold. Kareth lifted his head. Ronan stepped closer to Mara. This time, not to block her. To stand where she could see him. Caldress smiled through blood on her lip. The sealed line was not hidden only from the crown. It was hidden from what hunts it. The names on the wall flickered. Mara felt the moon seal over her heart tighten. Ronan's voice dropped. What hunts it? Caldress looked at Mara, and for the first time, her fear seemed almost honest. The thing your mother ran from before she reached this chapel. The crypt shuddered. Far below the altar, deeper than the buried records, something answered the sound of Mara's completed name. Not a wolf, Not a crown. Ah, hunger. Every silver name on the wall turned dark for one heartbeat. Then, beneath Mara's feet, the old stone cracked open, and from the darkness below, a voice whispered her true name back to her. The voice whispered Mara's true name from below. Lumara. It did not sound like her mother. It did not sound like the chapel. It sounded like something that had learned the shape of a name by listening outside doors it was never invited through. Every silver name on the wall went dark. The crypt cracked beneath Mara's bare feet. Kareth pushed against her side, his black fur bristling so hard the silver scars along his body burned like blades. Ronan stepped closer, crowned now, but no longer crowned the way the court had expected. The Moonline's witness lived in the metal on his brow. Every breath he took made the crown answer Mara's blood before his command. The darkness below laughed. Not loudly. That was worse. Kareth closed her eyes as if she had been waiting for that sound all her life. Mara looked at her. What is that? For once, the priestess did not answer quickly. Her hands trembled in the chains. The reason your mother ran, Kareth said. Ronan's voice sharpened. Name it. Kareth opened her eyes. The hollow moon. The chapel stones recoiled. The nobles on the stairwell began to panic. But Ronan lifted one hand without looking away from the crack in the floor. Stay behind the altar line, his voice carried. The court obeyed. Mara hated that part of her was relieved. Kareth laughed once, bitter and small. You command them well now that the crown has permission. Ronan looked at her. Do not mistake witness for forgiveness. Lixendinen. The words cut through the crypt. Kareth flinched. Good. Mara wanted to hate her cleanly. She wanted Kareth to be only monster, only liar, only the woman who chained her and ordered her throat cut, but the darkness below had a voice, and Kareth was afraid of it. That made the truth uglier. Mara looked at the cracked floor. Why does it know my name? Kareth swallowed. Because moon, blood was born to seal it. The darkness below whispered again. Born to feed it. The silver names flickered. Kareth snarled. Ronan drew his sword halfway, then stopped and looked to Mara. That almost broke her concentration. He had learned. Not fully. Not perfectly. But enough to stop before turning her life into his battle. Kareth spoke fast. The hollow moon hunts the sealed line. It follows completed names. Your mother knew it. She hid your name to keep it from finding you. Mara looked at the black ledgers, then at the chains. At the cost of every girl before me? Kareth's face twisted. At the cost of keeping Thornmere alive. No, Mara said. At the cost of teaching fear to call itself holy. The moon seal over her heart burned. The crack beneath her widened. A pale hand rose from the darkness. Not human. Too long. Too thin. Its fingerings, Not's fingers were made of black moonlight edged in silver, as if something had carved hunger into the shape of a woman's hand. The court screamed. Kareth leapt forward. Mara caught his fur. Wait. The wolf stopped instantly. Even Ronan went still. The hand hovered over the crack, reaching toward the glowing name beneath Mara's feet. Lumara. The voice below spoke softly. Last moon. Blood. Last seal. Last door. Mara's mother's silver figure flickered on the wall, weak but present. Do not let it touch the name. Kareth strained against the chains. Now do you understand? I sealed you because an open name is a beacon. Mara looked at her. You sealed me before I could choose. There was no time. There was a lifetime. Silence struck harder than accusation. The black hand stretched farther. The moonfire under Mara's feet dimmed. Ronan stepped beside her. What do you need? Not what should I do? Not let me. What do you need? Mara looked at the hand. Then at the names on the wall. Every woman before her had been used as seal, sacrifice, emergency law, hidden blood. The crown had survived by bleeding them. Kareth had justified chains by naming the hunger beneath the chapel. Ronan had lived because a child's blood had answered what no royal prayer could wake. The old system had given Mara two choices: be buried or be eaten. She refused both. I need the names lit again, she said. Ronan turned to the court. Read them. No one moved. The hollow moon laughed beneath the floor. Mara lifted her head. Read them. This time her voice carried through the chapel stones. The first noblewoman on the stairs swallowed. Her eyes moved to the wall. Lisara. The name flared silver. A guard followed, voice shaking. Luneth. Another name lit. Then another voice. Liora. Then another. Lumaye. One by one the court read the names they had been taught not to know. Each spoken name brightened the crypt. Each brightened name pushed the black hand back an inch. Kaldris stared. Not at the darkness. At the court. For the first time she looked truly lost. Not because the hollow moon frightened her, but because the thing she had spent her life controlling was being held back by witness, not bloodletting. Mara understood then. The sealed line had not been born to feed the hollow moon. It had been born to make sure no darkness could be hidden without a name. The last name remained on the wall. Lumara. Ronan looked at Mara. He did not speak it. He waited. Mara stepped to the edge of the crack. Kareth came with her. Ronan stood on her other side, sword lowered, crown burning with moon witness. Kaldris whispered, "If you speak it to the hollow moon, it will know you fully." Mara looked down into the darkness. "It already knows what you feared." The pale hand reached again. Mara placed her bleeding palm over the glowing letters at her feet. "But it does not know what I choose." She spoke her name. Lumara. The crypt exploded in silver light. The hollow moon screamed not in pain, but in recognition. The darkness below folded inward, as every named woman on the wall answered. Not as sacrifices, not as seals, as witnesses. Silver hands rose from the lit names and pressed the crack closed. The black hand vanished beneath stone. The floor sealed. The silence that followed was not empty. It was clean. Kaldris collapsed to her knees. The chains around her wrists loosened but did not release. Mara turned to her. The priestess looked smaller now. Still guilty. Still dangerous. But no longer holding the only story. "You could have told the truth," Mara said. Kaldris's eyes filled with something too bitter to be tears. "Truth does not make frightened kingdoms obey." "No," Mara said. "It makes them answer." Ronan lowered his sword. Then he removed the crown from his head. The court gasped. He held it in both hands and turned toward Mara, not offering it, not surrendering it, presenting it for judgment. "I will not wear this above buried names," he said. "If I wear it again, it will be after every ledger is opened, every sealed woman named, and every oath rewritten before witness." Mara looked at him for a long time. The wolf beside her breathed slowly. Kareth had prayed to her blood since Ronan was a child. Ronan had lived because of her. The kingdom had chained her for it. None of that became love because he finally did one right thing. But something had changed. The crown no longer stood between them as a wall. It lay in his hands as a question. Mara stepped forward and touched the crown with 2 fingers. The metal bowed again. Not to her alone. To the names on the wall. To the blood that had been used. To the truth finally spoken. "You may carry it," she said. "Not above me. Not before the names. With them." Ronan bowed his head. Witnessed. The chapel bells rang once more. This time, they did not ring for a coronation. They rang for the end of one. At dawn, the court emerged from beneath the chapel changed. Kaldris was taken not to a dungeon, but to the hall of witness, where every ledger she had sealed would be read aloud. The nobles who had watched Mara bleed were ordered to speak the names from the wall before they were allowed to swear any new oath. The coronation above was postponed until Thornmere could stand without a lie beneath its altar. Mara walked out of the crypt with no chains on her wrists. Kareth walked beside her, still refusing to return fully to Ronan's body. Ronan did not command him. He only looked at Mara and said, "He was right to stay." Mara looked at the wolf. Then at the uncrowned Alpha King who had finally learned to stand beside what he could not own. "You were late," she said. Ronan accepted it. "Yes. You do not get forgiveness because the crown bowed." "I know." "Good." She believed that answer more than apology. Above them, morning moonlight lingered pale over the chapel roof even though dawn had broken. The kingdom watched Mara step into it. The crescent mark over her heart no longer black at the edges, but silver white, and open like an eye. The court had chained a cursed woman beneath the chapel. But the chapel had named Lumara. The wolf had remembered her. The crown had knelt. And for the first time in Thornmere's history, the blood before the crown walked into daylight.